Today we are reviewing lesson 7.4, quadrilaterals. We're going to start by just taking a look at some of the different names of quadrilaterals and characteristics of each one. So we're going to start here with parallelogram, and there are a lot of different ones that fall into that category. But a parallelogram, the definition is that it has two pairs of parallel sides. So in this one, the top and the bottom, those are parallel. If those lines were extended, they would never touch. And then the left and right side are also parallel to each other. So that's what makes something a parallelogram. All right, over here for rhombus. Rhombus is a type of parallelogram, and it has four congruent sides. So I'm going to write a parallelogram with four equal sides. If all the sides are equal, it will be a rhombus, which means it has to be a parallelogram. The only way to have all four sides equal is going to put those sides in a way that where the left and right will be parallel and the top and the bottom will be parallel. Over here on this side we have trapezoid. Trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides. So these two are parallel. There are little arrows here to help you see that. These are parallel. All right, so I'm going to write exactly one pair of parallel sides. Trapezoid is not a parallelogram because a parallelogram has two pairs of parallel sides and a trapezoid only has one pair of parallel sides. All right, next one on our sheet, let's see, we'll start over here with the kite. So for a kite, we have two adjacent congruent sides, two pairs of adjacent congruent sides. So we have two short sides that are touching, and they're the same length, and then we have two long sides that are touching, and they're the same length. These little short lines indicate these two are the same, and then the double lines mean these two are the same. So kite has two pairs of adjacent and congruent adjacent means that they're next to each other, so short sides next to each other and touch, long sides next to each other and touch. Okay, a rectangle is a parallelogram, so it's a type of parallelogram. And then it's a parallelogram with four right angles. If it is a rectangle, it's automatically a type of parallelogram. And then a square combines both the rhombus and the rectangle. So it has four equal sides and four equal angles. So I'm going to write a parallelogram because it's still a type of parallelogram. Over here. With four equal sides and four right angles. So square is a parallelogram. The equal sides make it a rhombus. The four right angles make it a rectangle. So this is a rectangle, a parallelogram, and a rhombus, as well as being a square. All right, so classifying quadrilaterals. We're going to classify each quadrilateral and give it the name that best describes it. So quadrilateral means four sides. Quad means four, and then lat means side. So 4 sides on a quadrilateral. And then here they break them into 3 categories. Trapezoid, 1 pair of parallel sides. Parallelogram, opposite sides that are parallel and congruent. Kite, 2 pairs of congruent adjacent sides and opposite sides that are not congruent. Then out of parallelogram, they have the rectangle and rhombus because those are 2 types of parallelograms. And then they have that connect to equal the square because the square is a rectangle, it is a rhombus, and it is a parallelogram. So what we're going to do for our first type of problem is identify all of the possible names for the given shape. So here I have 4 equal sides, I have 4 right angles, so it is going to be a square. That's going to be the best name for it. But we're going to put the other names there too. So it is also a rhombus. It is also a rectangle. And it is also a parallelogram. Oh my goodness. Let's try that one again. Okay. All right, so 2. We have 2 short sides that are congruent and adjacent, 2 long sides that are congruent and adjacent. That's going to be a kite. That's the only name for that shape. Number 3 has a top and bottom parallel. That's going to make it a trapezoid. That also is the only name for that one. Here we have 2 long sides that are congruent and opposite, 2 short sides congruent and opposite. That is going to be a parallelogram. Here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides that are all equal, but it does not have right angles, so it is going to be a rhombus. It's going to be the best name for it, but it also is a parallelogram. And then number 6 has 2 shorter sides that are parallel and congruent. 6 has longer sides that are parallel and congruent, and 4 right angles. So the 4 right angles make it a rectangle. That's going to be the best name for it. And that also means it is a parallelogram. All right. So for a nice type of problem, we are going to be looking for missing angle measures in a quadrilateral. So in a quadrilateral, the total amount of degrees in the angles is going to be 360 degrees. 180 for a triangle, 360 for a rectangle, or any type of quadrilateral. It doesn't have to be a rectangle. So we're going to set up and solve an equation that has all of our angle measurements in it. Okay, so I'm going to start over here. 105 plus 80 plus 75 plus x equals 360. So my 4 angles, 1, 2, 3, 4, all have to equal 360 when they add together. So the first thing I'm going to do is add together the angles that we know. Everything that's on the same side together, if it can be combined with addition or multiplication or division, you need to do that as your first step. So for this one, when I add those together, I get 260. Then I still have the plus x equals 360. To cancel out the positive 260, we're going to subtract 260. 260 minus 260 is 0. It leaves me with x. 360 minus 260 is 100. It's an angle, so it needs a label of degrees. So x equals 100 degrees. Always a good idea to go back into the picture and just see if visually that looks right. So yeah, it looks like it's a little bit more than 90 degrees. So 100 would make sense. Okay, let's take a look at this next one. I'm going to write out my equation. 110 plus 92 plus 88 plus x equals 360. So my first step, I'm going to combine my like terms that are on the same side of the equation. So for this one, it's going to be 110 plus 92 plus 88. And that's going to give me 290 plus x equals 360. It's always going to equal 360s as long as there's 4 angles and 4 sides. So now we are going to subtract 290 from both sides. All right, and then when I do that, I get x equals, and then that's going to be 70. And again, that'll be degrees. All right, let's take a look at a couple more. Go ahead and pause the video and try these two on your own. Okay, let's take a minute to check our answers. So here I have 68 plus 126 plus 106 plus x equals 360. We're going to go ahead and add together the things that are like terms on the same side of the equation. So we're doing 68 plus 126 plus 106 equals, that's going to be 300. So 300 plus x equals 360. I'm going to subtract 300 from both sides of the equation. And I'm going to get x equals 60 degrees. Does it look like that angle could be 60 degrees? Yeah, that seems reasonable. All right, let's try our next one. So here I have 75, 75, 105. So I'm going to start, and I'll do it down here. 75 plus 75 plus 105 plus x equals 360. So I'm going to add this together. So 75 plus 75 plus 105 is going to give me an answer of 255. Well, so I have 255 plus x equals 360. Now I'm going to subtract 255 from both sides, and I'm going to end up with x equals 105 degrees. All right, the next thing that we are going to do is some constructions together. You do need to write down every single one on your paper. So if you do not have a protractor handy, please pause the video and go find a protractor and some paper. All right, so let's go ahead and try this one. Draw a parallelogram with angles that measure 110 degrees and 70 degrees. So we start with our protractor. I'm going to draw a nice straight line. I'm going to do the best I can. You should be perfectly straight. I can't lean up against this protractor to make a straight edge, so I just have to do the best I can. I'm going to do 110 degrees first. I'm going to take my protractor. I'm going to line up the center point with the end of my line and the line with my line. Okay, when my line is going to the right, the 0 on the bottom is on the bottom set of numbers. So here I'm going to 110, which is all the way over here. So I'm doing the bottom set of numbers, 110. Okay, now I'm going to take my protractor and I'm going to rotate it around so that I have a straight line between where my line ends, right here, and where my point is. All right. Okay, so the tricky thing for this one, and actually I'm going to pause and get a ruler here, is that for parallelogram, you have to have your two sides the same length, otherwise it's not going to look like parallel sides when we connect at the top. So however long you want to do it, it doesn't really matter on this one because they don't tell you how long, but you do need to pay attention to it. So let's say I'm going to line up almost there. Okay. All right, let's see. I'm going to draw. I need to start from the bottom here. Looks like I'm at 6.5. I'm going to go up to 2.5, so that's up 4 centimeters. 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I get to my next side that I'm going to draw, it's also going to be 4 centimeters. Otherwise, my shape's not going to stay parallel. All right. So now I'm going to go to this end. You're going to put your line on the line. You're going to put your center point on the center point. This time I'm doing 70 degrees. My line is going to the left. On the left, the zero's on the top side. So use the top set of numbers. On a parallelogram, that's going to end up being in the same part of the protractor. The first time it was 110. Now it's going to be 70 degrees. Those two angles on the bottom of my parallelogram are going to end up being in the same part of the protractor in order for the sides to stay parallel. All right, this time, let's see, I've got things lined up. Oh, and it looks like I have 7. I need to do 4. So I'm going to go up to 3. And then I'm going to turn my ruler, or turn my protractor, but I'm going to use a ruler. And I'm going to line it up so that my two parts are touching the same part here. There we go. Last thing I need to do is label my angles. So this one was 110 and this one is going to be 70. That's all you need to label. I'm going to go ahead and label just as a reminder that on a parallelogram, the angles that are across from each other are going to be the same amount of degrees. Sometimes they say 2 110-degree angles, and they're talking about these two. And to find this one, you could take your angle and subtract from 180, because these two are going to be supplementary. Okay, rhombus with 4 centimeter side and 2 75-degree angles. Go ahead and pause the video. Try this one on your own. All right, let's go ahead and do this. So on your protractor, centimeters are going to be the side that's on the inside here, the ones with the numbers closer together. Okay, it says 4 centimeter side, so I need to draw a 4 centimeter side. I need to label it 4 centimeters. Then I'm going to measure my 2 75-degree angles. So I'm going to line this up. 75 degrees, lines going to the right, 0 on the right side is on the bottom. 75 would be halfway in between 70 and 80. So I'm going to mark it. I'm going to move my protractor out of the way. Rhombus means all the sides are the same length. So when I'm lining things up here, I need to make sure that my sides are the same length. Here it is 4 centimeters. So I'm starting at 0, going up to 4. Okay, gonna line this over here. 4 centimeters. This is 75 degrees. Now I'm gonna go back to my protractor, line up my center point with the other end of my line segment. The line here is pointing to 100. I'm sorry. 180 is on the bottom and 0 is on the top. So since 0 is on the top here, that's the set of numbers I need. I'm not going to 75 this time. If I did 75 on the top here, they'd close to make a triangle. I have to go to that same point I did before where it was 75 on the bottom. That's where I'm making my point. Now I'm going to take and turn my ruler. I'm lining up where it says 0. I'm lining up the other point here. I'm going to draw 4 centimeters. I'm going to label 4 centimeters. And then I'm going to do the top. The top will be 4 centimeters as well. All right. So I'm setting that up. I'm going to do 4 centimeters. And I'm going to label it. These are my 2 75-degree angles. They're across from each other. Okay, last one. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one on your own. All right, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to move my protractor. I'm going to use my ruler. Parallelogram to 130-degree angles. First line, it doesn't matter how long it is. Make it however long you want. Okay, then I need to do 130-degree angles. So I'm going to go to the right side. All right, I'm actually going to make this a little smaller. Okay, so here's my line, 130 on the bottom. I'm using the bottom because 0 here is touching the bottom. Okay, so 130 is going to go on the bottom. I'm going to make my mark. For a parallelogram, it doesn't matter how long your sides are, but you do still need to pay attention to how long you're drawing them because both of them have to be the same amount. All right, so let's see. I'm going to do 4 centimeters. All right, now I'm going to take my protractor, line up the center point, line up the line. This time the line is hitting 0 on the top. I'm doing the same point I did before. This was 130 before. Now when I do it, it's going to be 50. I have to go to the same point of the protractor both times. Otherwise, it's not going to end up being parallel. I did the last one, 4 centimeters. So this one I also need to do 4 centimeters. Okay. Now I'm going to rotate this around. And I'm going to connect. Okay, my two 130-degree angles are across from each other. This one is 130 degrees. This one is 130 degrees.